The Shadows Return. Chapter 1: Resurrection. Jack Sullivan didn't die in Mosul, though the Department of Defense had drafted his obituary just in case. The 33-year-old Navy SEAL survived the IED blast that should have shredded him to ribbons, but instead plunged him into a 14-week coma. His wife Vanessa, a statuesque blonde from Seattle with ambitions that would make Lady Macbeth blush and the moral compass of an alley cat, received the news of his survival with practiced grief that masked her silent dismay. While Jack lay motionless in Bethesda Naval Hospital, she wasted no time in having him declared vegetative, emptying their accounts, and disappearing with a slick real estate broker named Troy Parker. But fate, that old trickster, had other plans, embodied in 30-year-old nurse Emily Bennett, whose quiet determination pulled Jack back from the abyss. And with him came a thirst for vengeance that would have made even Lucifer himself take pause. The first sensation that registered as Jack clawed his way back to consciousness was the smell, antiseptic and medicinal, with undertones of industrial detergent and human suffering. That peculiar institutional bouquet that permeated every military hospital from the dusty field tents in Iraq to the gleaming rehabilitation centers stateside. But there was something else mingling with it today, something unexpectedly pleasant: wildflowers. When he finally forced his eyelids open, the fluorescent light assaulted his retinas like a flashbang grenade. Christ Almighty, just like that day. The blinding flash, the deafening roar, then nothing but darkness. "Easy now," came a woman's voice from somewhere to his right. "Take your time, Mr. Sullivan. You've been under for quite a while." Through the piercing glare, a silhouette gradually took form. A young woman in white scrubs leaned over him, partially blocking the harsh overhead light. Chestnut hair pulled back in a practical ponytail framed a face with thoughtful hazel eyes that regarded him with cautious optimism. She held a small bouquet of wildflowers, the source of that unexpected fragrance. "I'm Emily Bennett, your primary care nurse. You're at Bethesda Naval Medical Center." Memory returned in jagged fragments like a film reel spliced by a madman, entering that abandoned schoolhouse on the outskirts of Mosul, the suffocating heat, the fine powder of ancient dust coating everything. Something felt wrong. A soft click beneath Peterson's boot, Chief Warner's voice cutting through the silence, pressure plate, then hell itself. "How long?" His voice emerged as a harsh rasp, like steel wool on corroded metal. 14 weeks and 3 days, Emily replied as she placed the flowers in a simple vase beside his bed. "I bring fresh ones every morning. They say familiar scents can help guide people back." 14 weeks, Jesus H. Christ. He attempted to move his arms, they responded, though sluggishly. His legs, too. At least paralysis had spared him. "Vanessa," he began, noticing Emily's expression shift subtly. Sympathy, anger. "My wife." "I'm sorry." She sat carefully on the edge of his bed, her small, capable hands enveloping his. "There are things I need to tell you. This won't be easy to hear." For the next 10 minutes, Jack listened to the chronicle of his own betrayal, each word landing like shrapnel. Vanessa had arrived at the hospital 3 days after the explosion, the grieving yet composed wife of a wounded warrior, a flawless performance. She'd wept, held his hand, consulted with doctors, and then, after 8 days, she stopped coming. Emily's voice grew hollow. "Said she couldn't bear to see you this way. 5 weeks in, her lawyer brought in medical declarations stating that your condition was irreversible. She obtained power of attorney. After that." What did she do? He already knew, but needed to hear it spoken aloud. "She took everything. Sold your house in Denver, cleaned out your accounts. Even your military commendations disappeared from your safety deposit box. I checked with some contacts in law enforcement. She and this realtor, Troy Parker, flew to some exclusive resort in Malibu." Troy goddamn Parker. Memory obligingly supplied an image. Smug bastard in an expensive suit showing them beachfront property. "Spectacular ocean views, Mr. Sullivan. Perfect place to settle down and start a family. The son of a bitch had probably been sleeping with his wife even then. Another flash of memory, their last morning together. Vanessa wearing nothing but his navy t-shirt, the mingled aromas of coffee and her perfume. Come back to me in one piece, hero. I'll be waiting. Treacherous witch. Conniving bitch. Goddamn snake. The cardiac monitor began beeping more rapidly. Emily leaned forward with concern. Jack, you need to stay calm. You've only just... I'm fine, he was, too clearer-headed than he'd been in a long time. Rage has a way of focusing the mind better than any pharmaceutical. Tell me the rest. You mentioned talking to me while I was under. Emily nodded, the corners of her eyes crinkling, evidence of fatigue and compassion in equal measure. Every day, read you news articles, books, played music. The doctors insisted it was pointless, but, she shrugged. I noticed your eyelids fluttering when I played Mellencamp, your pulse changing when I gave updates about the Seahawks. You were in there, fighting. Why? The question escaped unbidden. Why didn't you give up like everyone else? She gazed out the window for a moment. Maryland sunshine slanted through the blinds, harsh as an interrogation lamp. My grandfather was a corpsman at Chasen Reservoir, died trying to drag a wounded Marine to safety during the Chinese counteroffensive. I grew up understanding that men like you are different. You don't surrender, and those of us on this side of the battle have no right to give up while you're still fighting. Jack studied her, feeling something warm stirring beneath the icy crust of his rage. For 14 weeks, this woman had been his only connection to the world, the sole person who believed he would return. Emily. Yes. Help me sit up. I've got a plan forming, and I think I'm going to need your help, definitely going to need it. She assisted him in positioning himself against the pillows, and his gaze fell upon the wall calendar. 14 weeks and 3 days, long enough to lose everything, and long enough to start planning retribution. Somewhere in a luxurious Malibu beach house, his wife and her lover were burning through his money, making plans for the future, laughing about poor Jack who would forever remain a vegetable. Well, they were wrong. After all, his SEAL team hadn't nicknamed him the Phantom for nothing. He had a knack for returning from places where men were left for dead. And now he'd returned from darkness, bringing some of it back with him, specially reserved for them. Laugh while you can, you bastards. Soon enough, you'll learn what a real nightmare feels like. Chapter 2, Restoration. They say hatred gives you strength. Complete bullshit. Jack Sullivan knew better. Hatred won't lift you from a hospital bed when your muscles have atrophied to jelly, and each step sends lightning bolts of pain shooting up your spine. Hatred won't make wasted legs remember how to walk. No, that requires something more potent. Something like vengeance, seasoned with pure stubborn grit and a pair of gentle hands ready to catch you when you fall. 5 more steps. Emily's voice was soft but insistent. You're a SEAL, aren't you? Former SEAL, Jack grunted, white-knuckling the parallel bars in the rehab corridor. Sweat stung his eyes. And I'm well aware, God admit, that I need to reach the end. Just like that scorching desert hellhole, dragging Mendoza's bleeding body a half-mile under sniper fire. One step, another, don't you dare stop. His right leg betrayed him. The knee simply buckled and he began pitching forward. Emily was there instantaneously, small yet surprisingly strong. Her arms encircled his chest, preventing the fall. I've got you, she whispered, always do. She smelled of wildflowers and something subtly aromatic, herbs perhaps. Her grandmother, she'd told him, was Pennsylvania Dutch and always carried sachets of dried herbs. For protection, she claimed. Jack couldn't help thinking he could use any protection available, earthly or otherwise. You know what's most frustrating? He slowly straightened, gripping the bars again. I can't even beat that son of a bitch Parker to a pulp until I can stand on my own 2 feet. Emily smiled, that particular smile that appeared when she was plotting something. Maybe that's for the best. I have a friend in law enforcement, Tom Grayson. He might be willing to make some inquiries about our lovebirds. Cop. Detective. Worked with my father at NCIS before transferring to civilian law enforcement. He's already uncovered some interesting information. Jack raised an eyebrow questioningly. And let's talk in your room. Too many ears out here. The return journey took 3 times as long, but he managed it himself, relying only on a walker. A small victory. Hell no, merely a warm-up for the real battle ahead. Back in his room, Emily pulled a smartphone from her scrub pocket, scrolled through something. Here's what we know. They're in California, Malibu Beach. Parker leased a luxury penthouse there for some obscene amount of money. Care to guess whose money? Mine. Bingo, but that's not even the interesting part. Want to know what I learned about your real estate friend? He's not just a broker. He has a whole scheme. Identifies wealthy women, seduces them, then somehow gains access to their finances. 3 cases in the last 4 years, but none of the victims pressed charges, too embarrassed to admit they were conned. Jack clenched his fists until his knuckles whitened. So Vanessa was just another mark. What irony. Tom says they've set themselves up nicely. Leased a yacht, joined an exclusive country club, dine at 5-star restaurants. Living like royalty, on your dime. Not for much longer. Emily perched on the edge of the bed, her hazel eyes serious. You have a plan. Taking shape, but first I need to stand on my own, really stand. She nodded. Then we start small. Tomorrow we add strength training. There's a gym here. There it was. Something flickered in her eyes, that wordless understanding that passes between people contemplating the same reckless venture. She was prepared to help, ready to go the distance. Emily, why are you doing this? The honest truth, why? She was quiet for a moment, gazing out the window. The Maryland sunset painted the sky in shades of crimson and gold. You know what my grandfather told my father before he shipped out to Korea? There are 2 kinds of people in this world, those who inflict pain and those who heal it. But sometimes, son, to truly heal, you need to cause pain to those who deserve it. I chose a healing profession. But perhaps it's time to honor the second part of my grandfather's wisdom. She turned to him, and in the sunset's glow, her eyes seemed almost amber. The eyes of a seer, Jack thought. The eyes of a woman who sees through pretense. Besides, she added with a slight smile, I happen to be an exceptionally good actress. Did community theater for years. Even considered Broadway before med school. Useful skill, as it turns out. Jack eased back against the pillows, feeling fatigue settling over him like a lead blanket. But it was the right kind of exhaustion, the kind that follows productive exertion, after taking the first step toward a goal. Tomorrow, he said, tomorrow we start preparing in earnest, just need to figure out how. Leave that to me, Emily stood, adjusting his blanket with a practiced nurse's touch. I have an idea, actually several, but first rest, build your strength. She walked toward the door but turned at the threshold. And Jack, forgive me for overstepping, but you understand this journey will change us both. He nodded. Of course he understood. Vengeance is like radiation. It alters everything it touches. But sometimes those alterations are improvements. Like how a malignant tumor becomes a scar. How betrayal transforms into justice. How a solitary soldier and a quiet nurse might become something more than accidental companions on the road to retribution. Chapter 3: The Hunt. 2 months of relentless rehabilitation accomplished what the doctors had deemed improbable. Jack Sullivan stood independently once more. Every day, every hour, Emily remained beside him, supporting, guiding, believing in him when his own faith faltered. During this time, something deeper than a patient's gratitude toward his nurse had blossomed between them. Something authentic and profound, unlike anything he'd ever experienced with Vanessa. Their plan didn't materialize immediately. It began as evening conversations about betrayal, justice, and how to make two smug parasites pay for their transgressions. Then Emily shared stories of her Pennsylvania Dutch grandmother, with her peculiar gift for reading people's fears from their expressions alone, and the puzzle pieces aligned. Malibu, playground for the privileged and well-heeled. Jack stood on the balcony of the Oceanside Inn, surveying the boardwalk below. Somewhere amidst those carefree vacationers, his former wife was squandering his money with her lover, but their days of leisure were numbered. I found them. Emily appeared silently, like a wraith. Dressed in an earth-toned flowing skirt with her hair hidden beneath a gray wig, she was unrecognizable. They've rented the penthouse at Crystal Shores, directly overlooking the Pacific. Ostentatious. Completely. Know what that place costs per night. Don't even want to know. He flexed his right knee, which still ached after the flight. What's their routine? Dinner tonight at the Malibu Club. Then a sunset cruise. They've chartered the Pacific Dream for the week. Tomorrow, they're planning a day at the exclusive spa. Jack nodded. Where do we start? Emily leaned against the railing, and that familiar smile appeared, harbinger of a perfectly conceived mischief. Remember what I mentioned about the ventilation system at Crystal Shores? That it's antiquated, and that I happen to know someone in maintenance. Imagine the inconvenience, losing air conditioning during this heat wave, then discovering mold growing on your designer clothes due to the humidity. He smirked. And the yacht? That'll be even better. I've spoken with a mechanic, minor engine trouble precisely halfway across the bay. Nothing dangerous, just unpleasant. She withdrew from her bag a worn deck of cards, an antique hand mirror, and a shawl with intricate patterns. Now watch. Her voice transformed, becoming raspy and measured. A subtle Pennsylvania Dutch accent emerged. Let me tell your fortune, handsome. I see everything that's coming to you. Good God! Standing before him was an entirely different woman, weathered, harder, with an unsettling, penetrating gaze. A genuine fortune teller from the boardwalk attractions. You're incredible. My grandmother taught me, she reverted to her normal voice, smiling. Said the key to reading fortunes is seeing straight through people, their fears, their sins, and our couple has sins aplenty. Jack retrieved a small box with military markings from his backpack. How about adding some fear to their list of sins? The evening was uncomfortably warm. A summer storm approached from the Pacific, but the boardwalk remained crowded. Jack observed from behind a newsstand as Vanessa exited a restaurant. Judging by her stiff posture and pinched expression, her day had been less than ideal. Hardly surprising, waking to a stifling room, discovering mold on her favorite Laubautins, then learning their reserved table had mysteriously been given away. Emily waited in position, a stooped figure in colorful garments, with a deck of cards in gnarled fingers. Had Jack not known it was her, he'd never have recognized the transformation. Let me read your future, beautiful lady, her raspy, accented voice called. I'll tell you all truths, reveal your destiny. Vanessa attempted to hurry past, but Emily had already caught her wrist. Oh my, I see. I see trouble coming to you, beautiful lady, great trouble. Release me. Sin weighs heavy on you, heavy as stone. Betrayal I see, death I see. Vanessa paled beneath her tan. What are you talking about? There was a man, loyal man, strong man, went to war, but you. Emily revealed an unsettling smile. Now darkness follows you, darkness from beyond the grave. He hasn't forgiven, beautiful lady, he waits. Jack watched his ex-wife's eyes widen with alarm. That's right, sweetheart. Start feeling the fear. Here, take this. Emily pressed a card with an address into Vanessa's trembling hand. Come find me when terror truly strikes, and strike it will, I sense it. Vanessa recoiled and hurried away almost at a run. Emily shuffled slowly along the boardwalk, muttering something in an indecipherable language. Perfect execution. Jack checked his watch. In an hour, Pacific Dream would set sail, and there a special surprise awaited, a small electrical fire in the engine compartment. Nothing dangerous, just distressing. He pulled out his phone, typed a message. "You were magnificent." Her response came instantly. "Just wait, we're only beginning. Did you see her expression? She's already trapped, she just doesn't know it yet." Thunder rumbled ominously close. The storm approached, the very storm no weather forecast had predicted. Perfect atmospheric conditions for the first act of their vengeance drama. Chapter 4: The Web. The strategy was elegantly simple yet psychologically sophisticated. Jack and Emily decided against mere revenge, opting instead to systematically break the treacherous couple mentally. Emily, employing her theatrical abilities, portrayed an ominous fortune-teller who convinced Vanessa she was cursed. Meanwhile, Jack orchestrated a series of seemingly random misfortunes, from yacht breakdowns to mysterious nighttime noises. Day after day, week after week, they wove their intricate web, gradually ensnaring their targets in a trap of fear and paranoia. Now, witnessing the results of their handiwork, Jack realized everything was progressing more effectively than anticipated. Fear resembles mold. It begins as a tiny spot, then proliferates until it consumes everything surrounding it. Jack understood this firsthand. He'd witnessed how fear devoured men in combat zones. But now, observing his former wife deteriorating into a quivering shadow of herself, he experienced an unsettling satisfaction. She came again. Emily shed her fortune-teller persona like a serpent shedding its skin. In her regular attire, she appeared completely different. No one would connect this pleasant young woman with the eerie soothsayer from the boardwalk. Third time this week. And this time was revealing. She settled beside him on the couch in their hotel suite. "You know what's fascinating about fortune-telling? People voluntarily reveal their deepest fears. You simply need to listen attentively." Jack nodded. "What did she divulge?" "Everything." Emily smiled, that distinctive smile that still sent shivers down his spine. "How she was unfaithful throughout your deployments. How she and Troy planned what they'd do with your money if something happened to you overseas. How she considered it a sign from the universe when you fell into a coma, thought she'd been blessed." He clenched his fists until the knuckles whitened. "Heartless bitch." "Precisely. But here's the intriguing part. She genuinely believes she's cursed, especially after that yacht incident." Ah yes, the yacht. That had been artfully executed. A minor electrical short in the engine compartment while they were a mile offshore. Nothing truly hazardous, but the smoke and panic served their purpose. Particularly when Troy, that self-absorbed coward, panicked first and nearly pushed Vanessa overboard in his scramble to reach the lifeboat. "How's our Romeo holding up?" Emily laughed. After discovering his precious Corvette mysteriously scratched in the country club parking lot, and finding what appeared to be rats in their penthouse, let's just say their relationship is experiencing considerable strain. The rats were rather harsh. "Hey, I merely planted some droppings and set a few traps. They created the hysteria themselves," she shrugged. "Incidentally, Troy has started drinking heavily, especially after losing 50,000 at blackjack." "Which you helped him lose." "Perhaps I suggested to the dealer that this gentleman tends to bluff." Jack shook his head in amazement. Sometimes it unnerved him how completely Emily immersed herself in her role. She seemed to genuinely inhabit two separate identities, the compassionate, nurturing nurse and the merciless avenger. "Vanessa asked about you," she mentioned suddenly. "Not specifically you, about her husband. Said she sees him in nightmares, lying comatose, then suddenly opening his eyes and staring at her." "What did you tell her?" "That the dead don't forgive betrayal, and that her husband, that you were exceptional, that your spirit would never rest until justice was served." She retrieved a small digital recorder from her bag. "Want to hear it? I recorded the entire session." A button click, and Vanessa's trembling voice filled the room. I never intended things to go this far, truly I didn't, but Jack. He was always so principled, so predictable, and Troy, he showed me a different lifestyle, an exciting lifestyle. I thought if something happened to Jack overseas, God, I'm terrible, aren't I? Absolutely terrible. Jack listened, feeling something cold and dark expanding within him. Well, she'd hoped something would happen to him. He would certainly deliver on that wish. She's primed. Emily switched off the recording. A few more days and we can stage the main performance. I've found the perfect location, an old Victorian house on the outskirts of town, rumored to have belonged to a medium. You think she'll believe it? She already believes, especially after discovering your dog tags in increasingly improbable locations. That photograph was a particularly inspired touch. Yes, the photograph. Their final picture together, taken before his deployment to Mosul. Someone had placed it in their penthouse, with Jack's face burned out by cigarettes. Vanessa had nearly fainted upon finding it. She's almost ready, Emily stood, stretching. Just need to. Her phone interrupted, displaying an unknown number. Yes, she instantly adopted the fortune teller's raspy voice. Ah, it's you, beautiful lady. What, right now? Very well, come then, you remember the address. She disconnected, turning to Jack. It seems our bird has decided not to wait. She's flying straight into our web. What happened? She caught Troy with some casino cocktail waitress, created quite a scene, and then, Emily smirked, she thought she saw you in the mirror, standing directly behind her, smiling. Jack rose. I need to prepare. Certainly, she was already retrieving her fortune teller costume from the closet. Let's give her an unforgettable session. By the way, she turned, something dangerous flashing in her eyes. You realize after this there's no turning back. We can't stop what we've set in motion. He approached, placing his hands on her shoulders. Do you want to stop? No, she pressed against him. Sometimes I think you and I, that all this. Destiny. Retribution. I was betrayed too, remember. Perhaps that's why we found each other. Outside, another storm gathered. Oddly, the weather forecast had predicted clear skies. But what did it matter? Perfect timing for a seance. For Vanessa's first encounter with her husband's ghost. You wished for my death in combat, darling. Well, be careful what you wish for. Sometimes they come true, just not in the way you anticipated. Chapter 5: The Seance. After a week of nightmares, peculiar coincidences, and frightening incidents, Vanessa was prepared to believe anything. Every creak in their penthouse floorboards seemed like footsteps of a specter, every shadow and mirrors like reflections of the husband she'd betrayed. Troy, drowning in alcohol and his own fears, could no longer protect her. Only one recourse remained, consulting the disturbing fortune teller who seemed to know too much. Now Vanessa stood before an old Victorian house on the outskirts of Malibu, trembling with fear and premonition of something terrible. Ah, you've come at last, beautiful lady, the fortune teller's raspy voice emerged from the shadowy porch. I knew you would. The spirits told me. Emily barely suppressed a triumphant smile beneath her soothsayer disguise. For 3 days, she and Jack had prepared this old house for their grand finale. Smoke machines concealed in air vents, speakers embedded in walls, special wiring for unexplainable power outages, and most crucially, the mirror system in the parlor where the seance would occur. Come inside, she beckoned with a gnarled finger. But remember, whatever you witness tonight is genuine. Spirits despise skeptics. Vanessa crossed the threshold and the ancient wood moaned beneath her feet. The air smelled of incense and something else, something foreboding, musty, reminiscent of old tombs. A special blend of herbs from my grandmother's recipes, Emily thought with amusement. Nothing establishes atmosphere like the right scents. This way, she led Vanessa into the parlor, where a round table draped in black cloth awaited. On the table, 3 candles, a crystal ball, and an antique mirror. Sit, and do not stand regardless of what transpires. I brought money. Vanessa's hands trembled as she withdrew an envelope. Money? Emily laughed theatrically. You believe spirits desire your tainted money, the very money stolen from your dead husband. He's not dead, Vanessa exclaimed. He's comatose in a hospital. Is that so? The fortune teller leaned closer, her eyes gleaming predatorily in the dim light. Are you certain? Have you verified? Or merely accepted those documents your lover provided? Vanessa blanched. What are you suggesting? You'll see, Emily snapped her fingers and the candles ignited with blue flames. Thank you, Jack, for your military expertise with specialized chemicals. Let's ask him directly. She began swaying, muttering in an arcane language. Simple gibberish interspersed with a few Pennsylvania Dutch phrases grandmother taught me. The incense smoke thickened, forming peculiar shapes. Spirit of Jack Sullivan, Emily's voice deepened, becoming otherworldly. Manifest yourself. Your faithless wife seeks audience. The speakers emitted a subtle rustling, so faint it resembled wind through ancient pipes. Vanessa flinched. He approaches, whispered the fortune teller. I sense his fury. He knows your deeds, everything. The lights began flickering, right on schedule, Jack's military precision. No, Vanessa attempted to rise, but Emily's grip on her wrist was iron. Too late, she hissed. He's already here. Something moved in the table mirror, a shadowy form gradually materializing. The mirror and projector system, truly a masterpiece. Vanessa stared horrified at the reflection. There, within the mirror's depths, stood Jack, wearing the same military uniform he'd worn when departing for his final deployment. But his face was deathly pale, and his eyes burned with an inhuman intensity. Dear God, Vanessa whispered, dear God. You betrayed me. The voice from concealed speakers resembled Jack's, but with an unearthly echo. Left me to die, stole my life. No, I never meant to. Vanessa dissolved into tears. I didn't think, I just... Silence, the voice thundered, and the entire structure seemed to shudder. Shadows danced across walls, smoke swirled more densely. You believed I wouldn't discover, believed I wouldn't return for you. Jack began slowly emerging from the mirror, actually emerging gradually from his hiding place behind a false wall. But in the half-light, swirling smoke and flickering illumination, the effect was astonishing. Lord help me, Vanessa tried crawling backward, but Emily maintained her grip. You died, you really died. I'm in hell, Jack growled, approaching the table. Hell where you sent me, and you know what? The devil made me an offer. He said I could return, become living again. All it requires is... He revealed a terrifying smile, someone to take my place. Vanessa screamed, wild, piercing, struggled to free herself without success. There exists only one way to atone for betrayal, the fortune teller intoned seductively. One method to save your soul. You must surrender it to the devil, so your husband might return to life. What? No, Vanessa convulsed with hysteria. I can't, I won't. Then I'll drag you with me. Jack extended his arms toward her. To hell this very moment. No, she collapsed to her knees. I agree, I agree. I'll give my soul, just don't take me, please. Checkmate, Emily barely contained her triumphant smile. You heard her declaration, she addressed Jack. She's prepared to pay this price. Yes, he slowly lowered his arms. The devil has heard, the bargain is sealed. The candles flared brilliantly, then extinguished. In the sudden darkness, only Vanessa's sobbing and the fortune teller's soft laughter could be heard. Then the electric lights activated. Ordinary illumination, and in its merciless clarity Vanessa beheld her husband, alive, real, standing directly before her. Impossible, she whispered. You died, I sold. Surprise, darling, Jack smiled coldly. I've returned from the depths of hell specifically for you, as we agreed. the last thing she witnessed before losing consciousness. Her husband kissing the fortune teller, who transformed before her eyes into a young, beautiful woman. And they say deals with the devil always end badly, thought Emily, gazing at Vanessa's prostrate form. Well, that depends entirely on perspective. Chapter 6, Reckoning. Golden Sands Psychiatric Facility occupied a picturesque coastal location, surrounded by manicured gardens and flowering shrubs. Whitewashed walls, immaculate lawns, courteous staff, everything projected an image of prosperity and comfort. But Jack knew the truth. Behind this facade lurked the same hopelessness found in any mental institution. They simply concealed it better here, as befitted an establishment catering to wealthy patients. Mrs. Sullivan's condition remained stable. The chief psychiatrist, Dr. Mercer, reviewed her chart, but her delusions regarding a Faustian bargain and soul forfeiture. I must say, this represents one of the most unusual cases in my professional experience. She was always impressionable. Jack shook his head with convincing sadness. Especially after my injury in Mosul, I suppose the guilt. Yes, yes, she references that constantly. Her betrayal, the misappropriated funds. The doctor adjusted his glasses. Confessions of wrongdoing feature prominently in her monologues. No surprise there, thought Jack, particularly when there's so much to confess. What's the prognosis? I'm afraid treatment will require substantial time, possibly years. Her perception of reality is severely compromised. She remains absolutely convinced she sold her soul to Satan to resurrect you. And now, according to her, she's an empty vessel, a walking corpse. Emily, seated beside Jack, nodded sympathetically. In her tailored business suit, she appeared thoroughly professional. No one would connect her with the terrifying fortune teller who drove Vanessa to psychological collapse. As her legal counsel, I should inquire. She opened a document folder. Given Mrs. Sullivan's condition, perhaps we should address the question of her legal competency. Undoubtedly, the doctor nodded. I've already prepared the necessary evaluation. At present, she's incapable of making informed decisions or managing assets. Perfect. Jack permitted himself a slight smile. Now all money and property Vanessa had stolen would revert to him, as the legal spouse of an incompetent patient. The circle was complete. Their visit with Vanessa proved unsettling. She sat in a chair by the window, staring into the distance with vacant eyes. Beautiful, well-groomed, Golden Sands maintained patient's appearances meticulously, but somehow hollow inside, like a porcelain doll. "Hello, Vanessa." Jack seated himself nearby. She didn't flinch, only whispered, "Are you real or another spirit?" "Very real. Remember our bargain. You surrendered your soul so I could return." "Yes, yes," she nodded mechanically like a dashboard ornament. "I gave my soul away. Now I'm empty, completely empty, and you're alive, alive." She extended her hand, touching his cheek, then suddenly withdrew as though burned. "But how, you were dead, I saw you dead." Calm down," a nurse, a real nurse, hurried toward them with a sedative. "Mrs. Sullivan, you need to rest." Emily waited for him in the corridor, a question in her eyes. "Everything's fine," he took her hand. She truly is an empty shell now." "And Troy?" Jack smiled grimly. "Our Romeo proved remarkably cowardly. The moment Vanessa was institutionalized, he attempted to withdraw all funds from their accounts and flee to the Cayman Islands. But he displayed a message on his phone. My contact in law enforcement is intercepting him as we speak. Apparently, Mr. Parker has an extensive history of similar scams. 3 defrauded women are prepared to testify." They stepped outside. The ocean breeze tousled Emily's hair, and in the sunlight she appeared remarkably youthful and beautiful. Hard to believe this woman capable of such elaborate deception. "You know," she leaned against his shoulder, "sometimes I wonder, perhaps we went too far, driving someone to insanity." She chose her path, Jack shook his head. When she decided to betray a dying husband, when she stole everything I possessed, when she didn't wait for you, Emily finished softly, unlike me. He turned her to face him. You understand, I would never. I know, she smiled. You're different, loyal, perhaps excessively so. Seagulls cried in the distance. Waves lazily rolled against the shore. An ordinary day in this California paradise, except for one detail. In a room at the local psychiatric facility sat a woman who firmly believed she'd sold her soul to the devil. But wasn't that justice? After all, she had opened that door herself, the door to betrayal and deception. And Jack merely revealed what lurked behind it. As Emily's grandmother often said, every curse begins with one's own sins. Let's go home, Emily tugged him toward their car. To Virginia. I've had enough of ocean views and palm trees. Home, he tested the word's flavor. You know, it's been a long time since I had a real home. You will now. They departed, leaving behind Golden Sand's white walls and the crying seagulls. Ahead lay Virginia, a new life together, and a wedding in a small chapel outside Alexandria. And Vanessa, well, she had a home now too, with white walls, barred windows, and nurses administering injections to those who screamed too loudly about lost souls. In the end, Jack reflected, watching Emily's delicate profile as she drove, everyone reaps what they sow. Sometimes it just requires a little assistance. A few mirror tricks, some theatrical talent, and one exceptional woman capable of transforming vengeance into an art form.